Welcome to Comics Bazaar, the channel of comics commentary and arcana. This video features X-Men number 73, cover dated March 1998. The cover is by Jason Pearson, pencils and inks by him. I think his drawing is complemented well by the flat colors. The cover caption is Identity Crisis. We see Sabra versus Joseph there, and in the background a looming figure of a really crazy looking Magneto. And I think this is a really well designed and composed cover by Jason Pearson. He definitely had his own style at the time, and it's a shame that he died relatively young, because he really was a great talent when it came to comics. Now, it's a pity that the interior art is not by Jason Pearson as well. Instead, it's by guest penciler Jeff Johnson and guest inker Dan Panosian, so their names are there on the cover. And one other thing I want to note about this cover is that, of course, Magneto has resurfaced since Uncanny X-Men 350. That was the big revelation at the end of that issue. So it does raise the question of, well, who then or what then is Joseph, who we all assumed up to this point was an amnesiac Magneto. So let's open this one up to the first page. We don't have a splash page to start with, but it begins, the story set on New Year's Eve. One man's thoughts, a window into his soul, troubled by, and he's asking existential questions. Why am I here? My actions don't seem to make sense anymore. So many questions and no obvious answers. Well, the thing is that we are going to get an answer for Joseph in this particular issue, but let's continue with the story to get to that exactly. So where is he? Well, he has a pillow thrown at him, and it turns out he has snuck his way into Rogue's bedroom, and she's not happy with that. She says, I may be a romantic at heart, but if I ever catch you sneaking into my room again to watch me sleep, I'll snap your fool neck. Happy New Year. So one man's thoughts, one woman's confusion and desperation over her inability to control the power she's been born with. So Rogue is in a depression since abandoning Gambit in Antarctica and learning about his role in the Morlock massacre. I think that Jeff Johnson's art is very good, but I do think that the perspective is a little bit off here. Kind of makes Joseph look like he's like a shrunken figure. He should be much bigger if he is magnetically levitating in Rogue's bedroom. You know, how tall, or how tall is the room? Is it what, like 12 foot tall? Like, he should be much bigger in that panel. Anyway, let's move on. Turn the page, and we have our title of the story there, The Elements Within Us, and the creative team here, Joe Kelly credited with the story, and Joe Casey on script assist. So what that suggests to me is that Joe Kelly has plotted the issue, has maybe dialogued some of the pages, but he's getting some dialogue coming also from Joe Casey. Dan Panosian credited on inks. It's kind of strange that he gets a credit before Jeff Johnson on pencils. Digital Chameleon on color separations, and also it's strange that that credit comes here instead of Steve Oliff on the colors, and Richard Starkings and Comicraft on the digital letters. So what's going on in the X-Mansion? Well, since it was stripped bare by Bastion and Operation Zero Tolerance as part of that, the X-Men have started redecorating the X-Mansion, and here they are putting up wallpaper. I think this is really well done. I mean, imagine being tasked with drawing a scene that called for you to draw these characters hanging wallpaper. I mean, that's a difficult one to imagine in your mind, but I think that Jeff Johnson does well here. So also I think that Kelly and Casey do a good version of Cecilia Reyes in this issue. She's that bit less annoying than she's been in prior issues of her appearances. And the Beast arrives, and he's got a letter, and the letter is from Professor X. So Maggot, of course, has never heard of Professor X. Another X-Men, Cecilia, he asks, and she says, The great almighty Professor Charles Xavier is the original X-Man. Excuse you very much. This is his house, his school, his dream. Please note the sarcasm. Okay, so she's still sarcastic, still tetchy, but I think a little bit less annoying than in previous issues. So here's the Beast. Nice DeLuca effect there as he somersaults backwards to land on his feet at the foot of the stairs. Speedy delivery, he repeats. And Logan says, get on with it already, McCoy. We ain't got all day to watch you play post office. So he puts on his glasses. I always think that's a nice touch, that the Beast needs reading glasses. He's long-sighted. I won't dignify that with a response, Logan. My dear X-Men, so he reads from the letter. I find I have a spare moment away from the government work that consumes my life at present. And Beast comments, such nice sentence structure. So anyway, gets back into the reading of the letter. And in the meantime, you can see there that Logan is skeptical about this, and readers know that Professor X was a prisoner of Bastion, but we don't know what's become of him since the cancellation of Operation Zero Tolerance. So the Beast continues reading from the letter. Is my fondest hope that this letter finds you well and in the holiday spirit, because of course it's New Year's Eve and the Christmas period. Yeah, right, says Cecilia. Outed as a mutant, stripped of my internship, my life. God blesses everyone. Quoting Tiny Tim. And Maggot there says, don't hold back, doll. Tell us how you really feel. So Beast continues reading from the letter. I like the way that he's there on his hunkers on the table by the stairs. As you are all in my thoughts and prayers, I feel your absence in the sincerest depth of my heart, and I hope we shall be reunited one day soon. Be strong, take care of one another, continue to make me as proud of you as I am right now. Love always, Charles. So you can see the expression on the faces of the different characters there. The X-Men in this time period, post Operation Zero Tolerance, are quite dysfunctional, quite adrift in terms of their purpose. So it seems like it's the opposite moment to receive a letter from their disappeared mentor. And let's turn the page. And Logan's not buying it. He says, I'm getting parched. Anyone want a brew? And B says, Logan, I know this is difficult for you, but for us all, but stay, please stay. I think the professor would want. So Logan is angry. You know, McCoy, for a genius, you got no clue sometimes. You want to know what Charlie wants? It's all here. If you're willing to read between the lines or sniff between them. As he grabs the letter with his bone claw and sniffs it. I like the way it looks as if Jeff Johnson has actually drawn Logan's nose raised as he's sniffing. I think that that's very effective. The tinge of a sanitized cell, possibly a lab. Paper so crisp, you know there's been no sun on it ever. Words written in grease pencil, so the prisoner can't use it as a weapon. And there's more, but Joseph snatches it. He says, yes, there is, Logan. Hidden in these words is the tenacity of the human spirit, Charles's will to overcome, to persevere. If these things escape your scrutiny, then perhaps you should look again. But Logan's angry. Well, or rather, he's sarcastic. Well, slap my mouth and call me sunshine. Magneto here has found religion. It's a holiday freaking miracle. So Joseph responds, no, it's not religion I found, merely hope. So Logan storms off for that brew. I think this scene is very well handled. I like the foreshortening there on Logan's outstretched arm as he pierces the letter with his bone claw. I think this is all really well done in terms of the storytelling and art by Johnson and Panosian. Also, I should note, and if you look here at the inking of these stone lions here, in this anchor image at the bottom of the page, you can see Panosian's new style of inking. So it's very different from the style he had back in 1991 when he was inking over, I'm trying to think, Mark Pacella's pencils on X-Force after Mark Pacella replaced Rob Liefeld when he was fired from the book. So a new style of inking by Panosian, and he's moved away from the, let's call it the 90s image style, with hatching and cross-hatching. And it's a much more appealing style, this one, and it suits Johnson's pencils very well. Another interesting panel here in terms of the perspective, really good top-down perspective on Senator Kelly. He's there in the Operation Zero Tolerance base in the Nevada desert. It's a converted Hulkbuster base. And he's there looking for Charles Xavier. He says, Charles Xavier was caught up in Bastion's perversion of American justice, and I want him freed now. And readers know that Xavier was being held prisoner deep, deep, deep in the bowels of that Hulkbuster, converted Hulkbuster base. So is he still there? The scene switches to Rio de Janeiro. Now, this is a characteristic of Jeff Johnson's layouts, that he'll switch scene in the middle of a page. And I was thinking about that prior to making this review video. I think he does it well, but I much prefer, it's just my preference, I prefer a scene switch at the beginning of the page rather than in the middle of it. But I think this is the kind of thing that happens when you're given a plot Marvel style, and it's your business as the artist to lay out the story, and you are kind of handling when to have smaller panels like this shot of Kelly talking to the woman who's taking him through the Hulkbuster base, or the close-up there on the photograph of Professor X with the paperclip, and then you leave more space for a shot like this, Sebastian Shaw and his assistant walking down the staircase here in Rio de Janeiro, where a decaying Spanish castle has been transformed into a palace worthy of hosting the most opulent of the year-end galas, so New Year's Eve party, the Bacchus feast. So Bacchus, the Roman god of wine and reveling, thrown as it is every year by the world's most infamous and influential coterie, the Hellfire Club. However, all the pomp is merely to obscure the true activities of the megalomaniacal group that forms the club's inner circle and their Black King. So Shaw is in pensive mood, and he's not listening to the PA about the arrangements for the party. Mr. Shaw, please, sir, this is important. Aren't you the least bit interested? No, Carmen, he says, not especially. So he's contemplating this letter he received previously from a mysterious silhouetted figure who seemed to be capable of stopping time. And it's an invitation of a kind. And we don't know exactly what it is, but he does. And he's wondering whether to accept the invitation or not. And callously, he says, but is it callously, or is it dry wit? Is it ironic? He says, now be a dear and throw yourself off a cliff for raising your voice to me. That will be all. I choose to think it's just irony. Okay, so Salem Center. Like, this is interesting. Imagine being tasked with drawing somebody washing their hands after hanging up wallpaper. Well, this is how Jeff Johnson handles it, and I think it's done very well. And then, like, I like this whole page, actually. I mean, there's nothing much going on, and that's really the hallmark of a skilled artist, to make it interesting. You can see that he's tilted the angle here as the slugs, eeny and meeny, look out the window, and I like the sound effects that we get for them. We kind of have a sense of their kind of clicking, hissing noises that they make. So Maggot is there washing his hands, drying his hands afterwards, and he's wondering about, he asks them, hey, you ready to graze? And they're looking out the window, and they're looking down towards Salem Center. And previously, they killed a homeless person in Salem Center. So we're wondering as readers whether they've got a taste now for human blood. And it seems that Maggot doesn't know about it. So he doesn't know everything about them when he absorbs them. Hey, eeny, meeny, come on, don't you want to eat? That's the second time the little monster's out and ignored me, he says to himself. That's twisted. What are you two gawking at? Nothing to see in Salem Center. And then we have this bit which reminds us that Maggot has taken a fancy to Storm. Unless Storm's out there giving herself a spring shower again. Please, Lord. That's kind of humorous. Again, I like the tilted angle here. I like the spotting of blacks on the side of Maggot's face as well. The way that the cheekbone there is implied too. And somebody comes into the kitchen, and it is Joseph. So we get a nice upshot of him there. This kind of reminds me the anatomy and in particular the physiognomy of the upshot of Joseph's face of Chris Sprouse. There's some similarities between Jeff Johnson and Chris Sprouse's style. They're distinctive, but some similarities nonetheless. And Joseph says, we're on a break from work detail, you and I must speak with you alone. So Joseph has been pondering talking to Maggot because in Uncanny X-Men 350, when they met for the first time, Maggot addressed him as friend. You've been avoiding me since Antarctica, says Joseph, but this cannot wait any longer. We need to talk. And Maggot's been avoiding Joseph, so he's hesitant there. I like the reflection of Joseph's face on his glasses. And he says, safe, mate, let's wrap, but let's take it outside. I can kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Very well, says Joseph. Come on, girls, says Maggot. We're going to have a sit down with Mr. Joseph. And I just like the way they were looking out the window, and then they jump off the window sill. And I like the way that Jeff Johnson is drawing them. Gives you a sense of how they move. And also there's those sound effects again. And they left this drool on the inside of the window too. And then we see that there's somebody in a cloak, always in a cloak, outside, and was listening in on the conversation, but is mostly in silhouette there. By the way, I also like the way that the red brick here, it has this rendering on it, which gives you a sense of shade as well. These parallel vertical lines, not only shade, but also the texture of the red brick too. I think that's very well done by Panosian. And again, an indication of his new style and new aesthetic as an inker. So elsewhere, we have a close-up on this red light, and it turns out it is a morgue in the basement of... I'm trying to wonder, like kind of like a coroner's office or something like that. And this is about these people that have been killed in Salem Center by Eenie and Meanie. So I'm trying to remember the name of the function of this character here. Not a mortician, but I just can't think of the word at the moment. I'm blanking on it. In any case, she says, we make our own rules down here about smoking the cigar. They mask the smell of the rot. So she asks the guy if he wants one. Nah, I quit those. Those things kill. And she says, not as fast as whatever got to these two. Sleepy little Salem Center is getting to be quite a dangerous place lately. Reminds me of something in Albany once. Rabid dog attack. Sure didn't look anything like this though. So the guy is a detective. Wants to take a look at the bodies. She lifts up the cover, and the guy has to basically control himself from stopping himself from puking. And she says, the first corpse indicates, or rather he asks her, you think an animal did this? And she says, the first corpse indicates that bite marks, though not in any configuration I recognize. However, I think this was just to throw us off the trail. The second corpse has similar lacerations, but they form a pattern. So he's intrigued and he asks, really, what kind of pattern? To put it simply, the same pattern I'd leave behind after an internal examination, minus my artist touch. Whomever or whatever is responsible for these murders is autopsying its victims' graves. And Happy New Year, she says, kind of ironically at the end. So again, we've got a scene switch here in the middle of the page. But this is an intriguing little scene from Joe Kelly, like giving a little bit of character to the Again, I cannot think of the word. Somebody's going to tell me medical examiner, the medical examiner here, that she's smoking a cigar as part of her work. It kind of reminds me of some of the characterization on the TV series. I'm trying to remember which channel it was. I have some of it in box set, Homicide: Life on the Street, where you'd get like these kind of quirky characters, whether it was detectives or the people like this, the medical examiner. They all had their distinctive personalities. I wonder, was Joe Kelly watching the same show in the late 90s and bringing a little bit of that style over to this little scene here? And then back to the Xavier Institute. So Cecilia's there going up the stairs, and she's thinking to herself, this place, so empty, creeps me out. I'm used to people action, especially on New Year's Eve. Of course, it's usually in the emergency room, hip deep in suicide attempts and the homeless. Nothing. So the homeless obviously ODing or drinking way too much. Nothing says the holidays like a Salvation Army volunteer with a gaping chest wound. Guess that's all over now. Maybe someone will get a paper cut throwing confetti into the air. And then, as she's about to go into her room, who's busting out of it except for Marrow with her medical books and doctor's bag? And she's racing off. So where to? Well, remember, Callisto's recovering from being attacked by Bastion's Prime Sentinels. And so Marrow is taking care of her. So I think that's what's going on here, but it's not explained. So off goes Maggot. Cecilia runs after her and runs into Beast. Now this is a very kind of slim looking Beast there. And her mutant power manifests as she pushes by him. Get out of my way, McCoy. So there it is. But he is going to note something about it. And Cecilia's there exclaiming after Marrow that she's gone. That little chippy with the calcium problem had better not even think about coming back. And then her attention is taken by the fact that Beast is holding her forearm. Why are you fondling my arm? She asks, and he says, I'm palpating, Doctor. Trust me, there's a substantial difference. You used your passive psyoplasmatic field in an offensive manner quite effectively, I might add. So that's what we saw there. And so she's surprised. Did I? I was so mad at Marrow, it didn't even hurt like usual. And he says, well, it's intriguing. No? And she says, but it's creepy. Let's get off the subject of my sideshow body, shall we? What's this? So here we go. It's New Year's Eve, and the Beast has created for the denizen, for the, what would I call them, like the like anyone staying in the X Mansion, a public poster for them to add their New Year's resolutions. So of course the Beast has to delve into his thesaurus for it. Proclamation of personal premeditations for the impending year. So his New Year's resolutions: eat fewer Twinkies, read more 15th century texts, and cure the legacy virus. So he says, in light of the current state of ennui around the mansion, I thought it might be nice for us to write down our New Year's resolutions as a group. So Cecilia's intrigued, ambitious. I'm glad to see you haven't set any unreasonable goals. And the Beast humorously says, perhaps I've set the bar a tad high. Those little golden cakes are more enchanting than the brainwave manipulations of Mesmero. But of course she wasn't talking about the Twinkies resolution. No, the last one. Setting yourself up for failure, don't you think? The legacy virus? Cure? Not in the least, he says. The only variable in question is which month I'll do it in. So he's kind of bold about that. Care to place a friendly wager? You're not serious, she says, aren't I? So she hesitates, and then she says, okay, December, I'll make it easy on you. You're too kind. There's a pen next to the board if you choose to accept the challenge yourself, assuming you've got the requisite guts for it, as it were. So off he bounds. That's a nice drawing of him bounding away there. And there she is, intrigued by the idea of writing publicly her resolutions for the year. I like the little tape dispenser there on the ground as well. So Jeff Johnson really has an eye for detail. I think it's well done. And then again, a scene switch, last panel of the page. Maybe I'm more accepting of that kind of layout device. We've got Joseph, we've got Maggot. They're hovering there because of Joseph's powers in the air, out in the woods, up nice and high. Let's turn the page. So Joseph gets down to it. In my past life as Magneto, I was not a man known for dependence on others. Since my apparent rebirth, however, I've discovered a desire to connect with those around me, but because of my amnesia, I find myself unable to do so. I'm floating through life, unsure of who I am in the present, unable to process my unthinkable past. Before I completely lose my sense of self, I want to find something solid, stable. In Antarctica, you called me friend, he says. No one has addressed me that way, not even my incidental comrades here in the X-Men. And then he says more quietly, I could use a friend right now. So he's feeling alienated, lost, confused, and he wants to know what Maggot knows about him. Will you tell me? Tell me how we met. Tell me about the one good thing I might have done in the past to earn your respect. So Maggot there, he's got a little look of worry on his face, so much hurt in his voice, so familiar to my own, but I'm honor bound. I keep my secret that Joseph isn't the man I call friend. Besides, how do you tell a man that he isn't what he thinks he is? So Maggot here tries to get out of the direct question, and then suddenly Joseph is hit behind by these energy blasts. So who was that figure in silhouette hanging out outside the kitchen of the X-Mansion? Well, it turns out to have been Sabra, but this is a nice little sequence here. So Maggot, with Joseph unconscious, he falls from the sky, and this is what he thinks to himself. Joseph must have lost his magnetic grip on us when he got Donnered, taken. But who could skeet him that hard, and why? So he grabs Eenie and Meanie and kind of holds them up so they don't get damaged hitting the ground. And he says, round one to you, stranger. But Maggot's all blue juiced now, and we know what that means. Now this is interesting. Maggot, when his power is manifesting in some way, does turn blue. And he also becomes pumped up as well, physically. But what is going on? We don't know what's going on. That hasn't been revealed yet. And then it is revealed now who was in silhouette in the cloak outside the X-Mansion. For your sake, mutant, I pray that it makes you have the common sense to walk away from an affair that is not your own. So Maggot asks her, who are you? I'm Sabra, and today is the day that Magneto pays for his sins against humanity with his life's blood. So good foreshortening and perspective here on Sabra, hovering in the air though over Maggot and holding an unconscious Magneto, Joseph, with one arm because she's got super strength. And then the scene switches here, as I prefer it to switch, at the top of the page, and it's Rio, 2 hours till midnight. Everyone tells him how he's outdone himself this year, but the compliments mean absolutely nothing. The expensive champagne he's been sipping all night, devoid of taste. So Sebastian Shaw is in a funk, and he really isn't enjoying the party. But who else is at the party? Well, interestingly, Warren Worthington, aka Angel, and Elizabeth Braddock, aka Psylocke, are at the party. And also, who's at the party is Tony Stark, aka Iron Man. So Warren is there asking Betsy to dance, and she says, you know, Mr. Stark? And Tony replies, now, why would she care to do that, Worthington, when we're having a simply delightful chat? And then there's a mistake here with the speech balloons. This tail is going to Tony Stark. It seems, or am I wrong? No, this is Stark. This is right. Sorry, it's just, we need to see a little bit more of his moustache there to properly distinguish him from Warren. Of course, iron will and a dead heart, right, Tony? Says Warren. And Tony Stark says, come now, Warren, it's a party, remember. Don't get your feathers in a ruffle. So they both know exactly who the other is. And look who else is at the party. And we haven't seen him in a long time. At least I can't remember the last time that I've seen him in an X-Men comic. It's Trevor Fitzroy. So he's still a member of the Hellfire Club's inner circle. Or rather, he's become a member of the Hellfire Club's inner circle. And he says here to Shaw, before the ball drops and you become Caligula, there is a business matter to discuss, inner circle business. So there's a kind of like a signposting here that at midnight, Shaw is going to be enjoy himself at the party in a depraved manner, because it is like this bacchanalian party that they're having, but so far it's pretty tame and civilized. And Shaw says to him, ha, I've news for you, Fitzroy. At the current rate our little cabal is growing, we won't even exist this time next year. So he must be ironic there that they are losing members. So Fitzroy doesn't understand. Have a crab cake, Fitzroy. I hear they're divine. Meaningless, especially in the face of a mysterious force he must choose to embrace or succumb to. So Shaw is absorbed with this decision he has to make. By the way, I think that the art here on this page, like what Jeff Johnson is drawing in terms of these 18th century, late 18th century clothes that the guests are all wearing, is very well done. It's good work by him. And then we're back at the X-Mansion, and Storm is contemplating adding to the list of public resolutions, and she's wondering what to write. And Logan comes up and surprises her. Logan, goddess, must you always enter a room without a sound? Sure, he says, all part of the shtick. Have you read this, she asks him. What I could of it. Ray's is a doctor, all right. Look at that handwriting. And she's written there, I want to finish my residency and get a life going again. Are you going to participate? Asked Storm. That's a really nice top-down angle on the two of them there. Good height differential between them as well. Jeff Johnson drawing Logan at the appropriate 5'3" height. Might as well, says Logan. Anything to keep the Cookie Monster off of my back. You know how he gets when he slips into Mrs. Brady mode. And Storm replies, Logan, we should talk about what happened in the danger room with Marrow. I never expected it to turn out so poorly. Don't give it another thought, Roe, he says. I got sloppy. No one's fault but my own. So, I don't think that this little joke here is in Logan's character. Anything to keep the Cookie Monster off my back, like Logan has been watching Sesame Street. That makes no sense. Or Mrs. Brady. Makes no sense that he would have been watching that either in the 1970s. I mean, like, he was busy with his whole Weapon X Black Ops missions. But like, this is an instance where I feel that either Joe Kelly or Joe Casey came up with a nice joke line for a character and fitted it in here, but it doesn't suit Logan's character. There's no way that these lines would have been written by either Chris Claremont or Larry Hama for Logan. They're more like lines that you would put into the mouth of a character like Iceman. So sometimes, when a writer thinks up a good line and just wants to use it, it would be better in those cases to put it aside and use it later when the occasion and character warrants it. So just a little mild criticism I have there. I think that Kelly hasn't 100% gotten Logan's character and voice right so far, but sometimes he gets it right, such as Logan lighting up his cigar here inside the X-Mansion. That's Logan 100%. So, Storm is concerned about what happened between him and Marrow, and how Marrow pushed a bone right through his throat. And Logan says to her, "Get something straight, darling. I don't get pushed by anyone. The kid needed to learn a lesson. I was the only one to teach it. She thought she was invincible, thought she knew what it was to look death in the eye. She didn't, till she crossed me. Now she knows the real deal, and that fear might save her life." So Storm asks, "Are you saying that you allowed Marrow to stab you as part of a lesson?" "Maybe," he says, "or maybe I'm just doing a great job or rationalizing. I'll let you know when I figure it out." And that is a bit more like Logan there than the jokes. So what did he write? To be the best there is at what I do, soon as I figure out just what that is, Logan. That's not Logan again. So see what I mean? There's like a seesaw here between the characterizations that are on point for Logan and the ones that are off. Soon as I figure out just what that is. That's way too much in the way of painting Logan as someone suffering from existential angst, which is not really his deal. So Storm is there wondering whether he is a Skrull. And meanwhile, across the Atlantic in Hamburg, Germany, a certain mysterious parcel finishes the second leg of its unique odyssey. So this is coming from Africa, and it's addressed to Storm. And this post office guy this German post office guy is being very officious and looking at the postage on the package, not enough to get to Salem Center, New York. Surprised it made it this far. He says, "Oh well, back to wherever it is it came from." And then there's this bunch of African warriors somehow sneakily in the exact right postal office, and they tell him that the package has to go through. So it looks like he'll ensure that it does. Let's continue past the ads here. Back to Maggot facing off against Sabra. Now this is a great little scene with Sabra here. "I don't care who you are," says Maggot, "but you should have nailed both of us if you were trying to kill one of us." "And why would that be?" she asks. "'Cause you left one," and he was about to say standing, but she attacks him right in the stomach, winds him. "Fine, have it your way." So he's winded on the ground, grabs her ankle. He's coughing. "Mercy, but you obviously didn't realize that my overt attack was to leave you open for the good stuff. Biscuits on, girls, come and get it." So the two slugs launch themselves hissing at Sabra, and she simply just kicks them away. I think that that's a great little scene. And I love the dialogue. Insects, charming, not even an exclamation point. She is absolutely unfazed by the attack of these creatures, and he's in shock. "Woa." He says, "What are you?" So she says, "That's of no consequence. Your only concern should be putting as much distance between yourself and this matter as possible." So Maggot says, "Any chance you'd like to sit down and talk about this like civilized monsters?" "Not in this case. Sometimes justice must be delivered swiftly and without mercy, and for a malefactor of his caliber, quick death is indeed a merciful solution. What I'm about to do, I do for the world, for my people, and your soul, Magnus." So he's unconscious and she's going to punch him dead. And Maggot here has a moral dilemma. I can't take her. She's too strong, too experienced. But do I want to stop her? If she kills Joseph, my secret will be safe and I can keep on with my life as is. But he intervenes. "Wait, you're making a mistake. Joseph's not Magneto." So now that's confirmed for us definitively. Then we get a page back at the maximum security block of the Zero Tolerance facility. Senator Kelly has made his way down to Xavier's cell. Is Xavier going to be in the cell? Of course not. It's empty. He's gone. So where is Professor X? Rio, the Bacchus feast, reaches a fever pitch. The boundaries of human excess and vice are stretching thin. A good time is being had by all. So the boundaries of human excess and vice are stretching thin. It doesn't look like it. It looks pretty tame still at the party. I mean, there's a juggler there, and there's a clown here, a masked clown. That that's not really the boundaries of human excess and vice stretching thin. Anyway, Shaw's up here, still bored, but also wondering about what decision he'll make regarding the invitation. Even the richest among them has nothing, is nothing, and not one of them knows it. But I alone, have been given a glimpse at the truth. I've met the puppeteers who pluck men's strings and now must decide. Do I continue playing at life, tripping from game to scheme to plot for a spurious prize ever out of reach? Or will Sebastian Shaw cut the strings and stand on his own, for better or worse, as a man? So he makes the decision. Do you hear me, Wraith? I accept, I'll do it. And there is the Wraith in question, and responds, excellent, Shaw. Proper choice, only choice. Today, Shaw, your world ends, your life begins, and then the invitation self-destructs. So what was all this about? Who is above the Hellfire Club? And what is it that Shaw has accepted? Well, we'll find out in due course, of course. And then back at Xavier's, Sabra slaps Joseph awake, and he says here, explain this attack very quickly. So she introduces herself of the Israeli Mossad. So of course that's kind of superfluous. Is there any other Mossad than the Israeli one? Currently, I'm operating outside of my appointment to track down the mutant criminal known as Magneto. Is my intention to kill him in requital of his recent murder of a man in Prague. So that was the previous issue, among others. So Joseph, of course, he hasn't done any of that. And he says, had you bothered to ask, I could have told you as much. No, I'm not that man anymore. And Maggot says, she's being literal. You never were that man. You're not Magneto. I know this is a lot to hear right now, but Strue's Bob, as true as God, you are not Magneto. In Antarctica, I mistook you for Magneto and called you friend, and I meant it with all my heart. So imagine my surprise when you were struck down by the real item, my true Boat Magneto. He swore me to secrecy, and though I know he had his moments, the man did a hang of a lot for me once, and I owe him. That's why I've been avoiding you since we got back. I didn't want to talk to you, know what to say to a complete stranger. So this takes Joseph aback. He's not processing the information. You're lying. I know who I am. But of course, that's how the issue opened, where he was asking himself, who was he? I don't know if I believe it either, says Sabra. But now that doubt has been cast on your identity, wouldn't it be better to learn the truth before we proceed any further? So Joseph starts to think, so many questions, the memory gaps, my inability to access the past, my mysterious regression in age, and another man calling himself Magneto, killing in my name. No matter what the cost, I can no longer abide these mysteries. For all our sakes, and then he says aloud, I must know the truth, the real truth. And if you can lead me to the answer, Sabra, I'll follow you anywhere. So she detects sincerity in his voice. She says they're going to leave immediately, but she wants Maggot to keep things quiet. Maggot, you've kept your secret this long. Can you continue to do so when it counts? And he says, I'm in enough of a mess as it is. I don't want to make it any worse. But Joseph here wants to be sure. How can I trust you, friend, if you were sent here to perpetrate a scheme and harm the X-Men somehow? Look, Joseph, just because I know the man doesn't mean I'm working for him. It's complicated. So we're not going to learn just yet what is the connection between Maggot and the real Magneto. But you have to believe me, I'm not here to hurt anyone. So Joseph says, God help me, for some reason I do believe you. Just pray that my instincts, another typo there, instincts are correct, or I swear on my heart that you will pay a most terrible price. And then I like this little piece here where he remembers Rogue, and he says more quietly, and please, if Rogue asks why I left so suddenly, tell her it was not in anger. Make sure she knows it had nothing to do with her. So Maggot swears it, and Sabra has a few parting words for Maggot. I had my own doubts about this, Joseph, she says, and your admission helped to confirm them. But more importantly, I possess a great deal of knowledge, Maggot, some of which pertains to you and your relationship with Magnus. So she knows the backstory. I know you won't hurt anyone, Japheth. Not if you can help it. So we've learned something about him, his true name, and he's surprised. How did you know my name? Wait a second, but she's gone. Good luck, young one. May we all find what we're looking for. And then it's midnight. So it's the new year. Beast is watching the crystal ball drop in Times Square at midnight in front of the telly on his own, but he's got snacks and it looks like Cokes. And a bit of humor here. And then he switches off the TV and says, like Mama McCoy's boy is certainly off to a smashing new year. 10 seconds into it and moping already. So question is, where's Trish Tilby? Where is his girlfriend on New Year's Eve? What's going on there? We have no reference to why they're not together. But he bounds away and quotes some poetry. Now the new year, reviving old desires, the thoughtful soul to solitude retires. And he passes by the poster on the wall for the resolutions of the various X-Men, and he's surprised. The shake of baby New Year's rattle did not go unheeded. After all, maybe there's hope for us yet. Happy New Year indeed, as he heads up to his room. And here we go. We can see the various resolutions by certain characters, and also we'd be thinking there's certain characters who didn't write a resolution. So we've got the Beasts, we've got Cecilia's, we've got Logan's, and here we get Storm's. Find the wisdom in my leadership. Learn from my friends. Reestablish my relationship with Mother Earth. And Maggot's added to the list. To do right by my new friends, to become an X-Man, to be free. And there we go. Quite a decent, quiet issue, more or less. It kind of had me thinking of what Scott Lobdell would do. By contrast, something similar to this, but I'm discerning Joe Kelly's voice coming through. I think he does very well on the new characters. So that is characters like Cecilia, like Maggot. And I think his Beast is pretty on point as well. It's just Logan is a bit off, as I said earlier. But I think that this is an entertaining issue tied into New Year's. And then we get an interesting, usually the letters page, there's nothing too interesting, but there's two interesting points here on this letters page. So a correspondent, Brendan Walsh, writing in with a suggestion for a code name for Cecilia Reyes. Clash is his suggestion. I think that's a good one. That's a pretty good one. And then another correspondent, Prem Dinesh, via email. And this guy's complaining, as I've complained in many review videos, about the characterization of Cannonball when he joined the X-Men. And how it was regressive, how he was portrayed in contrast to how he came across in issues like X-Force 19 and 20, when Sam decided to take X-Force away from the mansion, etc., etc. I pointed that out before. And what's the response? Thanks for raising an interesting point. Cannonball did indeed grow into the very model of competence and responsibility while in X-Force, but like all of us, when thrust into a new and different situation, Sam reverted back to his former pattern of behavior. As he gains experience with the team and builds his confidence back up, no doubt that purposeful stride will return. Don't you worry, Sam will bounce back. You know, it's an attempt at explaining what Lobdell did with Cannonball and the regression there, but it doesn't persuade me. But it's nice to see the kind of interesting letters being run here on the letters page. So this must be down to Jason Liebig, the assistant editor, and I think that That's different from the Bob Harris era, where all the letters were all just kind of puff pieces of praise about what was going on in the books, and nothing like this. Okay, so I do hope that you enjoyed this review and commentary on Adjectiveless X-Men number 73. Let me know your thoughts on this one in the comments section. If you enjoyed my review and commentary, please like and share the video. It really does help the channel. If you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for more content like this.